Welcome back to Insects for Fun, the podcast where we dig deep, literally and figuratively, into the fascinating lives of our six-legged neighbors. Today, we're turning our attention to a tiny but mighty group of soil dwellers that often go unnoticed: springtails. They're not actually insects, but they are essential to healthy soil ecosystems. In this episode, we'll talk about what springtails are, how they live, what they eat, and the massive role they play in keeping our soils rich and alive. Springtails belong to the class Collembola, a primitive group of hexapods closely related to insects. They differ from true insects in some key ways though, like their internal mouthparts and lack of wings. Although not all insects have wings, so that one is kind of a grab bag. Now, these hexapods are very tiny, usually less than 6 millimeters long, and many species are actually under 2 millimeters, making them incredibly difficult to observe unless you happen to have a colony going on like I do. My colony is more or less unwanted, however, as I have no idea how they even got into the soil of my rainbow stag tank, and they monopolize the log where I place my beetle food. Springtails' most famous feature is a tail-like appendage called the furcula. This forked structure is held by tension under their abdomen, and when released, it acts like a spring, flinging them into the air to escape predators or sudden disturbances. It's like the eject button in a fighter jet, only a lot more composty. Springtails are everywhere. You can find them in forests, grasslands, agriculture fields, gardens, leaf litter, rotting logs, and even the surface of snow. That's right. Some species are cold adapted and can be seen hopping around in the snow, earning them the nickname snow fleas. One common snow-dwelling species is Hypogastrura nivicola, often seen on snowbanks in late winter and early spring. This species is found in North America and parts of Europe, particularly in boreal and temperate forest regions where it feeds on microbial films and decaying organic matter. How can they survive on the cold surface of snow, you might ask? Well, like many insects, these tiny arthropods can make their own antifreeze proteins, which enable them to move about the snow without slowing down. Also, I want to really quickly go over microbial films, because we've mentioned them before, but I didn't actually talk about them. Basically, these are just thin layers of microorganisms like bacteria, algae, fungi, and sometimes even protozoa that are of course invisible to the naked eye. These films can also be found in every climate imaginable, such as cold and snowy tundras or the extremely hot places we talked about in the thermal insects episode. But let's get back to springtails. Currently, there are over 9,000 described species, and estimates suggest there could be more than 50,000 worldwide. They also come in a surprising variety of forms, which I will now go over. The first would be Poderomorpha, round-bodied, usually found deep in soil. An example species for this body type would be Falsomia candida, a model organism used in soil ecotoxicology. Now the next body type is Entomobryomorpha, slender, often found on the surface of leaves or litter. An example species would be Entomobyra nivalis, a widespread surface-dwelling species in temperate climates. Now the last body type I'm going to mention is Symphypleona. These are globular, kind of like springy little beach balls with antennae. An example species would be Sminthuris viridis, known to hop across vegetation and occasionally turn up in agricultural settings. Okay, let's get into the life cycle and behavior. Springtails undergo a metabolous development, meaning they don't have distinct metamorphic stages like butterflies or beetles. Instead, they hatch from eggs into miniature adults and continue to grow through successive molts. The first stage is, of course, the egg. Female springtails lay clusters of eggs in moist soil or organic material. The eggs hatch in about 5 to 10 days, depending on temperature and humidity. Next comes the juvenile stage. After hatching, juveniles begin feeding immediately and molt every few days. The adult springtails actually continue to molt throughout their life, sometimes up to 40 molts total, and lifespans can range from a few weeks to several months, again, depending on species and environment. Behaviorally, springtails are known to aggregate in large numbers when moisture is high, and disperse during dry periods. Species like Fulsomia candida reproduce parthenogenetically, while others have courtship behaviors involving pheromones and antennae tapping. When it comes to defensive behaviors, springtails have a couple things to work with. Their most iconic defensive mechanism is their spring-loaded tail, which I mentioned earlier. This unpredictable jump makes them incredibly hard for predators to track and capture. Some springtails can jump over 100 times their body length, reaching distances of up to 10 centimeters. The speed of this launch has been estimated at 4.2 meters per second, making it one of the fastest accelerations in the animal kingdom relative to body size. That's like a human jumping the length of a football field in under a second. But this jump isn't their only trick. A few species have evolved chemical defenses to ward off predators too. One such species is Sphinthurides aquaticus, a globular springtail which can secrete a sticky repellent substance from its abdomen. This helps deter predators in their watery habitat. Also, members of the genus Tomoceros can produce noxious secretions as well, which taste bad or irritate what would be attackers. These chemical defenses are often combined with slippery, wax-coated bodies that make them difficult to hold onto, kind of like trying to grab a gummy bear that's been rolled in olive oil. Now, you might be thinking, aren't springtails like super small? What kind of predators even want them? And turns out there are actually quite a few different predators to springtails, such as mites, spiders, beetle larvae, centipedes or other soil arthropods, small amphibians, insectivorous fish, and even some bird species forage and leaf litter for springtails. Now, personally, I have actually started feeding springtails to my rice fish, and they seem to really enjoy chasing them as they jump across the water surface. Now, as I mentioned earlier, springtails are mostly detritivores, meaning they feed on decaying organic material, and their diet mostly includes dead plant matter, fungi and spores, bacteria, algae, and pollen. Now, there are, of course, some omnivorous springtails and even some carnivorous springtails, but for the most part, springtails are definitely known as being detritivores and being connected to soil ecosystems. Their diet includes dead plant matter, fungi and spores, bacteria, algae, and pollen. This diet helps break down organic matter into smaller particles, which in turn feeds microbes and makes nutrients more available to plants. Some springtails have been observed feeding selectively on specific fungi, which means they can help decide which types of fungi grow more or less in the soil. Think of them like tiny taste testers, who pick and nibble on certain fungi more than others. This changes the composition of the soil. And speaking of soil, springtails play several key roles in soil ecosystems. Number 1, decomposition. By munching on detritus and fungi, they accelerate the breakdown of organic matter. Number 2, nutrient cycling. Their digestion of detritus helps release nitrogen and other nutrients into easy plant food. Number 3, soil structure. Their movements through soil help improve aeration and create pores for easy water access. The last one is microbial regulation, which we last mentioned with their selective fungi feeding. Studies have shown that springtails can help boost plant growth, especially in low nutrient soils, by enhancing microbial activity and nutrient availability. In fact, after writing this episode, I'm going to try and establish a colony in my potted prayer plant. But let's talk about how they're used in a bigger agricultural setting. Springtails are gaining attention in regenerative agriculture and organic farming. These types of farming are focused on improving the health of soil, ecosystems, and biodiversity. It's a way of farming that can give more back to nature as opposed to taking away land and abusing it for the purpose of mass crop and animal production. Now, the reason springtails are great for these kinds of farming practices are because of their role in nutrient cycling and soil structure, which I just mentioned. Their presence is often a sign of healthy soil, and some farmers even measure springtail abundance as a bioindicator for soil quality. Contrary to old fears, like the belief that springtails would infest crops or damage plant roots, springtails have proven themselves to be harmless to plants and incredibly beneficial. For example, in the early 1900s, farmers in parts of Europe mistook high springtail populations for root-eating pests because they were found near struggling crops. However, it was later discovered that these springtails were merely feeding on fungi and decaying material around already unhealthy plants. These old misconceptions have since been debunked through modern soil science and agriculture research, confirming that springtails are not plant pests. In fact, their presence is very much a good thing. And that is going to wrap up this episode on springtails. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something new. And as always, make sure to rate the podcast wherever you can, 5 stars. It's greatly appreciated and helps boost the show to more listeners who want to learn more about insects and other tiny arthropods. Now, if you'd like more content, you can head over to Patreon. It's high vlog season right now. I'm very busy making vlog videos of my caterpillar raising, and I will be getting more into black lighting soon as well. Thank you again for your support, and you'll hear from me again next week.